So, Michael takes partial responsibility, passed suddenly, unexpectedly. I'd almost say tragically. I'd say before our time. And then it's like one thing leads to another. And I think we have, I think we have something that he wore. I do see almost like, I kind of see, I can't tell if it's his personality, but I kind of like, I could see tattoos on him maybe. Or maybe that's you having tattoos or him being a tattoo guy. Okay, maybe we have a shirt in honor of his memory. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. He goes, it was really suddenly, you couldn't make any choices out of it. It seems either really dark, like it's a dark condition, it's nighttime, or we take partial responsibility. When I set the stage, it's dark. Partial responsibility, underlying, saw it before it happened, tragically, suddenly, unexpectedly, still have his clothes. Oh, and that's the other thing I was going to write. I was like, we might have his clothes, but also I think we potentially have like a hat or something. Almost seems like car accident, like it happens so quick. Okay, Shannon says, I have tattoos, so does he, and I have a memorial, tattoo in honor of his memory. And she said, you have his personality. Okay, so is this your dad, or you love his personality? You never know what's a typo around here. He says he's passed before his time. He says, my heart, Cato, my heart. So you're either his heart or it had something to do with his heart. I just heard verbally, my heart. Suddenly, yes, and it was Dad. Okay, how'd he pass? He goes, I went right into it. So there's something intentional, like, let's say it's something about his heart. And he's like, nah, I'm going to ignore the symptoms and go for it. And you hit a wall, okay? So something, or like, oh, you're driving and you hit a wall. It's like dark conditions. You knew it. There was some sort of like, and then he goes and it's tragic, like, but there's some partial responsibility. Like one thing leads to another, or you're acknowledging something, not taking care of it. It's like, look it, suddenly, unexpectedly, twice. I didn't even see that shit. What happened? Yes, it was his heart because of his drug use, but I didn't know, and he died from sepsis. First of all, how in the hell? Listen, let's break down, oh my gosh, let's just break down what you said by psychology. Yes, heart because of drug use, but I didn't know. There's your responsibility. Then she goes, drug use, but I didn't know. And then she goes, and died from sepsis. Drug use, sepsis, I didn't know. So most likely you had to balance the emotions of your caregiver growing up. And most likely you have an over-accommodating personality right now because this had gone on for a very long time. And if it was drug use and we went down by the heart, typically there's even like, so a whole life worth of using, okay, and then there was like a clean period which wears down the heart, okay, and then you go back to it and you go right into it and you hit a wall. Yeah. All right, do you have his clothes or his hat? Huh. And it was his heart due to drug use. You can't take any responsibility. You were taking care of him to some point. You're not really even realizing that who you're taking care of. It's a typical scenario here in which you're having to overtake care of this father figure. I feel it. I am doing wonderful. Okay, he had only been out of prison for a few years, so I'm assuming he must have like lived with you, or you were just excited to have a dad and you were very accommodating and you were very like taking care of him, and then he, has symptoms that he doesn't go into. Okay, like remember how he's like, I have symptoms of what's going on, but I take responsibility for not getting it checked out. I went right into it. So instead of going to the doctor and maybe getting blood drawn and getting some help and getting cured for sepsis, he allows the symptoms to go, continues his use, and talks about his heart. And then I was like, what were you doing, Shannon? Fucking taking care of him because you got all this guilt about, oh, I didn't know. And then what does Shannon say? Shannon says, I have a lot of things. So he's talking about this again. She goes, I have a lot of things because he was staying with me, but he was away from me when he died. Okay. I love you so much, Shannon. I feel this from the core memory of my human experiences. And when addicts are being held accountable, they go. And you say, well, I didn't know, and he was dying from an infection because he was hard up on an issue. His heart starts leaking into his whole body, so he goes away because he can't stop with his issue. He doesn't want you to know. He only stopped doing these because he was in prison. He had done them all the way up till he went to prison. As soon as he got out, he's admitting to this, okay? He starts again, straight into a wall. Then he creates distance, which is textbook addict, because you're taking care of him and you are enabling him in this way. You didn't know because it's being kept from you by somebody who obviously has this experience to do that, and you're this kind heart just willing to help everybody. Fuck, and it doesn't feel good thinking you enabled him, so instead of enabling him, you take guilty responsibility for his death. I could see you 1.5 miles away. I've been there, done that, right? And so, guess what? He displayed all the signs of having to take responsibility for how he passed because you can't keep holding guilt that you couldn't change or reform this man. I think the version of him that you got to see was the best version that ever existed, and some of it was unfortunately an act because of the addictive personality. Okay, so I'm not saying he's a bad person. I think he's great, I think the core foundation of who he is great, but you also have to know, textbook, you were put right through it. So you can't hold responsibility because there were things that were intentionally kept from you being able to see or perceive, okay? It's like getting professionally duped, and I'm sorry it was your dad, but you can't hold on to anything. There's nothing you could have seen. He'd have ran 7,000 miles before he was giving up his independence. And he loves you. I told them to make him a DNR. Yep. And that's literally the only thing you would have to do. Only thing you could do. And you say you miss him so much. And honestly, he misses you. And he goes, so I've waited for a while to come through and say these things to her. And she has a good heart. And I don't want her to take responsibility because it's my soul's responsibility to take responsibility. He could have been a better person. You could not have been a better daughter. Okay? So he loves you. He's not going anywhere. Write down your dreams. You have dreams, but you don't remember them all. You have shit ton of deja vu. Just pay attention, journal as much as you can. And he loves you. He's not going anywhere. If I can talk to him right now from like wherever we are in the whole entire world, listen. They are right there, ladies and gentlemen. You have to go to that place in your mind. That's where you see them. And then you have to trust yourself, which is a huge piece of the equation.